Remakes and remastered games have been a hot trend for a while now, and they are flooding the gaming industry. This is no surprise, especially after Capcom's success with the popular Resident Evil franchise. Resident Evil 2 Remake was released January 25, 2019 and quickly outsold its predecessor, selling over 13 million copies by the end of 2023. This would be the spark that lit the fire as rich fat cats in every gaming company's boardroom wanted a piece of the remake pie. With remakes and remasters being such a hot topic, I thought it'd be fun to analyze some old gems that deserve a remaster or even a complete remake overhaul like the Resident Evil or Final Fantasy franchise, starting with number 5. Number 5, we have Eve of Extinction, otherwise known as EOE. EOE is an old linear beat-em-up style game developed by Yuke's Co. and published by Eidos Interactive. Eidos Interactive Limited, formerly Donmark Limited, was a game publisher back in the day, based in Wimbledon, London. They're responsible for hit games like Tomb Raider and Hitman. In this game you play as Josh, a dude who works for your average everyday corrupt conglomerate, bent on world domination. This company's called Wisdom. Wisdom creates advanced military weapon technology and they plan to take over the world with their prized invention called Legacy. Legacy is a process where human souls are bonded with a rare alloy called auriculum, and made into weapons that can transform into other weapons and unleash powers called legacy drives. The living weapon can communicate with whomever wields it, much like the Soul Eater anime, where the warriors fight alongside people that transform into living weapons, except a legacy can't turn back. Wisdom has taken Josh's girlfriend and turned her into a legacy sword that's now wielded by Josh, but the two can still communicate telepathically. So the point of the game is to stop the evil CEO of Wisdom and find a way to turn your girlfriend back into a physical form, of course so you know they can do stuff. It was actually a pretty awesome game at the time and it kept you hoping for a more polished sequel that sadly never came. I think with modern combat mechanics we could work in some really tight combos and some really flashy movesets for each weapon. A lot like the Ninja Gaiden games or even similar to the new Rise of the Ronin that just came out, you know, with all the different weapons and styles. It was pretty unique at the time, though it could be called a B-tier Devil May Cry, the first Devil May Cry that is on PS2. It even had a cool edgy rival for your protagonist to battle multiple times in the game. So if you're a shonen lover or you like a good old Dante and Virgil type rivalry, then this is definitely going to be right up your alley. This was really fun to play back in the day, but it was ridiculously easy and short. Very short, like extremely short. I remember the environments looking fairly cool for a short game, but it really made you wish you could explore more. This game and another one that's going to be on the list reminds me of The Devil Within, a little beat-em-up minigame that came on Tekken 5. The camera and the simple fighting moves weren't really much to holler about, but mixed in with a bunch of high-energy techno music and cool colors everywhere, it really kept you entertained for the whole hour or two of game time. The plot really wasn't its strong point, but it was the feeling of wanting more from the game that made it so memorable. You just really felt its potential with every minute that you played, and it definitely seemed like it could really go harder had it been given the budget to do so. The story definitely needs to be modernized, definitely needs to be redone, but again, it's not really bad, it's just kind of generic and, you know, pretty short. But overall, the whole thing is pretty f***ing linear. You could probably stretch this world out a little bit. This is definitely a game that you beat in a day or two, but even with that said, the potential that it held is what stuck with you when you played it. Which is why I'm talking about it 20 years later saying it needs a remake. It still had many unique traits that gave it enough flair to stand out though, like a line tracing mechanic that would activate your weapon's legacy power, and a lot of cool looking characters. It was very straightforward, and was by no means a complicated game, but it was one that I could see being fleshed out into something much deeper, and I'm sure with better writing the story could go hard as hell. If this game had bigger levels with perhaps a co-op mechanic, a more in-depth leveling system for each weapon, style, and maybe some type of powers that you can unleash. And come on, if you're gonna have cool characters, let us customize their clothing and the looks of the weapons, because that just goes such a long way for creativity and fun. I remember it was really fun gathering a bunch of new weapons from all the bosses, and the concept of this game is pretty good. If you're gonna rewrite the game, you already have so much to work with, so there really isn't that much that you would really need to pull from the air. The characters are already cool enough, now all you need to do is just make a game, make an anime, flesh this bitch out, relaunch it, rebuild this fanbase, and you got something. This game has mad potential still. This is definitely something you could turn into an anime and have some sick Bleach fights. Number 4. Extermination on PS2. Extermination is the very first ever horror game for the PlayStation 2. It was even used to demo the PS2's mechanics, before the game was even officially released in stores. You would think with a reputation like this, it would be a household name in gaming by now, but it's actually considered a hidden treasure in gaming. In this game you play as Dennis, a Marine who's part of a special recon task force sent in to infiltrate a secret research facility in Antarctica. Your squad must investigate a distress call, only to find out that there's a serious outbreak of a mysterious infection that seems to have killed everyone. But not before they sent out a distress call, which actually was a call to order an airstrike on their own facility. So things must really be going down if they want to nuke town themselves before getting any kind of help. But that's where Dennis and his squad come in. This game is a special one as it had my heart pumping when I was a little dude playing it in the dark. You have both a health bar and an infection gauge on your HUD. If you're completely infected, the game will change what hurts you in the environment. For example, if you're completely infected, you start to grow these weird organic monstrosities all over your body, and your health continuously drops. But that's not all, folks. There's puddles of infected water and all kinds of obstacles that don't just add to the infection meter now, but they deplete your health bar until you're a zombie thing and it's game over for you and Dennis. This was almost Kojima-like innovation that came with one of the very first PS2 games to ever hit the market. Where the hell is that kind of innovation in gaming now? Anyway, this is a great game to play at night, and I remember it being like if Resident Evil was mixed with Metal Gear Solid. The best way to describe this game is if Leon Kennedy wore Solid Snake's outfit and snuck into Shadow Moses during a mysterious yet massive T-virus outbreak. The voice acting is a little on the PS1 side, and it's terribly noticeable.
It was you, Cindy?
Dennis, is it really just a coincidence that you're here? Regardless, I don't have anything left to say to you.
But imagine what some good voiceover would do with a game like this. You'd be able to grip people's heartstrings, or have their body turn hot and cold at the same time, as they see people getting torn apart. But instead you had this.
I'll do anything to save him, to save my baby. I'll do it for the love of my son.
Crazy bastard.
Add some better voice acting and flesh out the story a bit, because there's a lot of interesting backlore that they really didn't go into, other than maybe like a line or two during dialogue, but there's not much cutscenes for history purposes that would really get you more captivated by the story. And trust me, it would, if the players knew about it. The game overall did an amazing job at giving you a dark, creepy, and suspenseful experience. One of the things they did best in the game was making you feel alone and helpless. Ammo is extremely limited, health is always at risk, infection is all around you, and the enemies of the game are super OP. Like, them suckers be eating bullets for lunch, son. The facility is your run-of-the-mill secret lab, and the enemy design isn't really that diverse, considering it's infected soldiers and zombies, so you can expect a lot of enemies to resemble the Flood of Halo. Not to say you couldn't make those look amazing now. You see organic sludge all over the place due to the infection, and it even changes the way you travel through the facility as the game progresses, similar to Metroid Fusion. There's tentacle-looking gross organic matter that spreads as you progress further in the game. With modern design and graphics, the enemies and the environments could really be insane, but the game already looked good for something that came out in 2001. Number 3. The Bouncer. Another beat 'em up for the list is a hidden relic that flew under the radar like it was at a bar where dads who never come back go to. Everything about this heavily anime-esque game was superbly stylish, which is no surprise being that it was developed by Squaresoft in the early 2000s. It's like you're playing an anime action movie turned into a fighting video game. From the flashy character designs to the beautiful cutscenes that could almost be compared to PS3 and Xbox 360 level graphics, this game was so far ahead of its time but never received the praise that it so rightfully deserved. In this game you play as one of 3 badass bouncers of a dive bar called Fate, in their home of Edge City. While working a shift at the bar, their longtime friend and main character's love interest, Dominique, shows up and is suddenly kidnapped by mindless corporate ninjas. Yeah, you saw that coming, right? What this sweet innocent girl was doing hanging out at a dive bar so much that they became her family, I don't know. They don't explain that too much other than like backlore, but we'll get into that in a second. Well, hold on. These ninjas were sent by an evil rich guy named Duragon and his corporation called Mikado. Duragon is Dominique's older brother, and when they were kids she was sick all the time to the point her body was giving out. Duragon the Prodigy built her a new cybernetic body long ago, but now he needs it back to use as a key for a satellite he needs to take control of to overthrow the world. Yeah, you saw that coming too. Each bouncer has their own fighting style and specific attributes to take down any drunk dads that want to scrap about the ball game. I still remember all the bouncers' names by heart. That's how much I played this game. Sion Barsad, Kolefo, and Volt Kruger. Three badass dudes who kick ass and take names on the reg. Volt, a guy with unexplained horns on his head. He's the wrestler tank that used to work for the Mikado Corporation. He's got a dark past and he doesn't say much, but he gets the job done. Ko, a cool cocky tattoo-covered taekwondo master who knows how to have a good time. He comes from wealth and he has a connect or two because of it. Sion, a young martial arts master who saved Dominique after she woke up without her memory, lost in the city. All of this goes down on Sion's 1-year anniversary as a bouncer at the bar. I hope he at least gets a raise. They go from bar bouncers to world savers as they try to stop Duragon and save Dominique. This game is over the top fun and nonsense and I love it. A classic formula of high, middle, and low attacks, with a mixture of jumping attacks and some brutal special moves. A beautiful environment in every level, gorgeous graphics for an old game, and it's square so you know everyone looks cool as hell. The people you play as, the enemies, the bosses, the cool panther that keeps showing up, everyone's got mad drip and they're not afraid to show it off. You may even recognize some clothing the bouncers wear, as they made some small cameos in other games including Kingdom Hearts. Volt's jacket, you may recognize that little cactus bastard that always shoots you with needles and runs away. It's a gorgeous game and each character looks like they could have their own anime art. They're all so cool and mysterious, and as goofy as many things in this game can be, it doesn't really come off as cringe at all. The story is a little odd, but in a fun way. I mean, you're already playing as bar bouncers saving the world, so that's already a great start. There's a lot of character lore that I really wish we could have seen more of, because nobody in the game is boring. In fact, if you look up their fandom, they each have a long backstory and a lot of care was put into building this world. Now this game is extremely linear, as you're on a set path with zero exploration. It's strictly fight zone after fight zone. The music is fun and energetic, and all of the different personalities of the story mesh really well, and it makes a really impressionable experience for the player. The thing I like least about this game, however, you cannot play multiplayer in the story. At all. Story mode is strictly solo, you cannot play multiplayer, you can't play with a buddy, there's no couch co-op, only in versus mode or in survival mode. Which is, I mean, you know, playing it in the story would have made this game so much more popular. It's strictly single player, which is ridiculous for a game where teamed combos is valuable. That's pretty much how you get most of the points. Like, the AI does damage, but even in today's gaming, we know computer AI squad mates aren't very reliable. This, I feel, is one of the biggest reasons the game wasn't as big as it should have been. If we got to beat people up together as a team, you bet we'd be talking about it as a group. I really sincerely feel like this game's reputation would have just blew the hell up way more if you were able to do co-op during the story. The game itself is a series of short fights where it has an active character selection system, so when a cutscene ends, the player can choose their fighter among the three. The other two bouncers are going to be AI. But again, this would have been much better if you could have played with a buddy or two. After each fight concludes, you get a number of BP, which are bouncer points. These are your experience points. You can spend these points on your selected bouncer's health, power, and guard, and even unlock new fighting moves. The points came from bad guys you beat up, but you really have to pull off some team takedowns and chain combos to get those points up. If you look at the game now, it's a little slow paced and can look a little clunky or goofy, but remember this came out over 20 years ago. I think today we can make it more similar paced to the DMC franchise, or even similar to Tekken 5 to the Devil Within. Hell, maybe even Tekken 8 when you fought a bunch of jackbots. The team combos are fun to watch, as it seems like an early inspiration for the Rockstar Warriors games, and those games were so fun to play. But those you could do couch co-op, so overall this game is one I refuse to let people forget, and I think a solid remake or a remaster would do this game some serious justice. Number 2. Final Fantasy X. This game is by no means a hidden secret, as most everyone has heard of this game in one way or another.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
Bruh.
This is the only reason it didn't make number 1 on the list. It's been remastered before in 2012, but it hasn't been given a full remake like Final Fantasy VII. This chapter of the Final Fantasy series developed by Squaresoft was one of the very first to feature complete voice acting, and to have three-dimensional environments in almost all the areas rather than pre-rendered backdrops. In this game you play as Tidus, a high-spirited, fun-loving sports star of his city, who's in the middle of a big game, when out of nowhere a gargantuan monster attacks your beloved home, and you're somehow transported 1,000 years into the future during the attack. In the future, you wake up in a land now called Spira, where the very same giant monster is now known as Sin. Sin is pretty much the embodiment of pure terror and destruction, a massive unit of mayhem that acts like a kaiju of sorts, destroying towns and cities all over, and unmercifully killing anything in its path. The people of Spira are extremely religious, and have deemed technology a sin against their religious practice known as Yevon. Yevon and the government are one in Spira, and nobody dares go against the teachings. Until now. Tidus is immediately thrown into a journey of stopping the Titan of Despair by guarding a magical summoner named Yuna. The only way to defeat Sin is to have all these mystical summoned creatures and get what's known as a final summon to defeat the giant monster. These summoned creatures are called Aeons, and most of them are cameos of summoned monsters from previous Final Fantasy games. This game has got it all, folks. Action, drama, loves, politics, war, magic, monsters, anything that is in the realm of imagination is pretty much in this world. Hell, it even has an underwater sports game called Blitzball that you can play anytime you want to take a break from fighting monsters. Square really knocked it out of the park making this story, as it's filled with deep mystery and relatable obstacles that we all deal with, from daddy issues, religion and politics being intermingled with war, and even entire races of people being ostracized by society due to propaganda. Some hot topics for a kid's game, but that's what comes with the territory of great storytelling that doesn't pull punches. This is a game that really lets you get to know all of the characters. It explains so much of the lore with long cutscenes and dialogue that fill in pretty much every question you'd have. The game does a wonderful job in intriguing you by introducing everyone to Tidus with an inner monologue that the player hears throughout the story. This makes you feel even closer to your main character as you're exploring this new world with them, but it's also to add more mystery of what's to happen next. When I play this game, I can't help but look at all the fine detail of every inch of every place you're in. They really gave it 100% to make even the most meticulous designs all over the place. Every single part of everywhere seems to have some kind of cool pattern on it. Designs on designs. And don't even get me started on the beautiful cinematics. My god, they were breathtaking to see for the first time. It was so good I remember playing the opening cutscene. It was so cool my family members were walking around the house going, "Whoa, what are you playing? This looks like a movie." Another thing I think was cool about this game was I think as kids we all imagine going somewhere into a faraway land and becoming a hero, someone who really makes a difference. So imagine you had just that happen to you. You wake up in a strange new beautiful world, but there's lots of bad things happening and you have to fix it all immediately. It's all up to you, no pressure, do it. Full of innovations, this game implemented a brand new leveling system to Final Fantasy called the Sphere Grid, and would use a conditional turn-based system rather than a time-based system, meaning there was no time meter for your characters to have their turn. Turns were given limitless time, but the amount of turns was based on your party's agility stats and the agility of your enemies. There's plenty of homages to the old Final Fantasy games, and even though they did a lot of things different in this one, it was a refreshing change of pace for not only a new era of gaming, but for a new generation of Final Fantasy enthusiasts. This was the first Final Fantasy to release on PS2, and it was, in my opinion, the perfect way to introduce the series to a new generation, while still respecting the RPG titan that is Final Fantasy. After spending over 1,000 hours on this game across all platforms, I can tell you that I would absolutely buy this game day one if it had a remake. All of the characters are unique and make a wonderful ragtag group of heroes who share history and bonds with one another that are actually interesting, and they really immerse you in the story. This game really needs a remake, so we can see it through the lens of its cinematics. The cinematics in this game were superb for PS2, and at the time it was compared to Hollywood CGI. Being able to see the story of this world unfold with Unreal Engine or something would be mind-blowing, as it's one of the most beautiful games I've ever had the pleasure of playing. Number 1. The Legend of Dragoon on PlayStation 1. The Legend of Dragoon may not be the most talked about game, but those who have played it dare not forget this long journey. With a huge roster of playable characters, beautiful landscapes, and a very long, rich story. I'm surprised they haven't already remade this game during the PS4 era. I didn't play this during the PS1 release, but I got around to it during my PS2 days, back when you could just pop in a PS1 memory card and let it rip. In this game you play as Dart, a young warrior with the ability to harness the power of a dragoon. In this world called Endiness, dragoons were brought to life after a species called Winglies enslaved humankind. Humans and dragons would team up to counter the Winglies and stop them from taking over the world. During the War of the Winglie and the Humans, a creature was sent to their world in the form of an embryo. But not just any space-sent embryo. This was the Virage embryo, which was actually a god of destruction. The creature had to be dealt with by the order of the Winglie's leader, Melbu Frama. The Winglie people magically separated the creature's body and soul before it was born. Melbu would wear the soul of the creature in a necklace to enhance his own magic, while the body of the creature was pretty much launched into the sky and called the moon that never sets. Based. That's based as shit. They just threw that shit in the sky. Yeah, this thing was so big it became a moon for their world after they thought it'd be a great idea to just toss it in the air. This is almost like how we discard our trash. Just bury it in the ground, throw it in the ocean, or launch it into space. This guy could have been president, jeez. During Melbu's reign, dragoons from all over the world gathered to attack his kingdom, and the necklace was shattered in battle. The soul of the god of destruction would roam the world free, and every 108 years would join the soul of a human in hopes of getting its body back. The giant moon body in the sky, that is. How are you gonna get that? The human containing the soul this time would be Shayna, Dart's longtime friend and love interest. This causes her to be taken away, and Dart and his loyal band of friends have to rescue her and stop the Winglies from harnessing her soul. Man, there's a pattern here somewhere, with the whole love interest being turned into things or being used as keys or unlocking some kind of mystical power by stealing someone that someone else loves. This is crazy. Why? Yeah, it's definitely no wonder these need some fresh rewrites. I'm noticing a pattern. This is a story-rich RPG that is definitely comparable to the original FF7. It's full of beautiful pre-rendered backgrounds and the combat's pretty progressive. It uses turn-based, time-based, and quick-time events in combat, so it's pretty innovative for the time. That's right, this game really wanted you to get into the fights. You press the action button when two squares combine and you execute some cool flashy moves that do more damage.
Yes! Double flash!
My favorite thing about this game, as well as a lot of games on this list, is the characters that you can play as. There's 9 playable characters you meet along your journey in this game, all of which fight with different weapons, styles, and have different abilities unique to their dragoon power. You have Shayna, Dart's longtime friend and love interest, Rose, a mysterious dragoon warrior who teaches Dart the ways of his newfound power, Albert, a king of one of the game's towns and his trusted knight Labbits. There's like a big guy with a mohawk who carries like an axe or hammer or something like that. There's even a kung fu like martial arts master who's like an old guy looking for his daughter. It's really f***ing cool. Very diverse. Every single party member has a badass transformation ability similar to the Devil May Cry Devil Triggers, where your party member will become an actual dragoon, floating with cool armor and wings and a really nice unique custom weapon. This is definitely awesome, and even better is your main character Dart has a second form, and it's like a dragon man tank. It's f***ing cool. Earlier when I said that this game has a long story, I mean that. It's literal hours and hours and hours of story that keep you engaged and immersed the whole way through. The story doesn't even really need to be changed that much, maybe, modernize it a bit, add some great voice acting, and this would be a banger beyond anyone's imagination. Maybe get rid of the whole girlfriend being used for power thing, because it's kind of, outplayed as you can see from this list alone. And also, there's plenty of ways you can add romance between characters without it being such a threat to the world. I get the whole Romeo and Juliet inspiration where it's like, oh, nobody wants us together, but again, a little played out on some aspects. Maybe some modern writing would kind of juice it up a bit, and I think tastefully so. Maybe giving it the ability to be either time-based or hack and slash like the new Final Fantasy remakes would do the game some justice. To see their fight styles, weapons, and powers today would no doubt build a new fan base, and I'm not the only one who feels that way, as all over the internet you can find forums, comments, and tweets of people saying that they want this game to be remade. Even on YouTube, there's countless videos of people saying, why hasn't this been remade yet? And this is another one. This is why this game is #1 on the list, because there's so many things of people really wanting this to be remade, not just myself, someone who's actually played it, but there's all over the internet, people are like, why haven't they touched back on this? Why haven't they done something else with this? Why haven't they at least given some kind of fully 3D remaster, that would be f***ing sick. But, we can only dream, But this game overall was one that I will never forget. I haven't played it in a long time, but it's actually one that I do want to pick up again, because I know as soon as I do, bye-bye a month of my life. The only question now is, will we ever get to play a refreshing new enhanced version of these games? Only time will tell, but maybe if you hit that like button, we can get the word out about these games and we'll be that much closer to all of our dreams coming true. Thanks so much for watching everyone, I'm Rez, and if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button and I'll see you next time. Oh yeah, and that bell thing too, notifications and all that. Have fun everyone.